As you can tell, I've been working on my moves. Welcome to Mr. Marini's class for October 28th or October 30th. A little pre-Halloween edition for you guys. We're going to talk about something pretty cool today called Dia de los Muertos. If you've never heard of Dia de los Muertos, it is not the Mexican Halloween. It just happens to take time at the same place during a similar time. And it's sort of a spin-off on another holiday, just like Halloween sort of spun off this other holiday as well. Okay, so whatever you do not call Dia de los Muertos the Mexican Halloween. I have two friends who are Mexican who yell at me every time I say that. So, you guys did the warm-up already. Got to see that wonderful makeup picture right here to start today. We're going to talk about why they wear makeup like that today, all sorts of fun things. But let's get down to business first. So on your notes catcher, where it says cultural diffusion, you've got three sort of ideas I want you to write down about cultural diffusion. The definition, modern cultural diffusion, and cultural sharing / borrowing. Okay? Let me move my head there for a second. Okay, go ahead and pause the video, get these down. Okay, so guys, when we talk about cultural diffusion, it's a big geography concept. It's essentially how the idea that cultures move, right? Culture moves as people move. You know, just because you go somewhere doesn't mean your culture stays there and you 100% assimilate. As peoples move, as countries move, as groups move, culture goes with them. Right? Today, culture doesn't move so much with people as much, although it does to a degree, but it moves more, of course, with communication ideas. You think about how many things we get from the internet from other countries, ideas, TikToks, whatever, that spread to our country, right? And how many of our ideas spread to their country, right? So the big thing to think about, though, with cultural diffusion is rarely does cultural diffusion mean culture just comes into a place and just gobbles it up and takes over. Usually when culture moves, it somewhat changes and shares and borrows from the ideas that were already there, and the ideas that were already there change and borrow and adapt to the ideas that came in. Right? A couple examples for you. We think of tea, right? When you think of tea, Great Britain is, of course, like famous for its tea. Tea service in Great Britain is a big thing. Well, tea doesn't even come from Great Britain, of course. It comes from East Asia, specifically China. How did tea get back to Great Britain? Well, Marco Polo went to Europe, found tea, found the practice of tea. People liked it. People started drinking it, and all of a sudden it became the favorite drink of Great Britain. This would be an example of cultural diffusion. Right? Another example, cultural diffusion for you. Right? This map's a little bit older now, but it's pretty accurate still. These are the countries with McDonald's. There's a few more red countries than blue now. In other words, there's more reds. There's actually more red if we looked at this today, but you get the idea, right? But one thing to know about McDonald's is when they go to another country, they'll adapt their menu slightly to that country. So you'll see kind of local favorites or local cuisine turn sort of into McDonald's. You'll see McDonald's, you'll see a Big Mac, you'll see quarter pounder usually, but you also see kind of local things they like. Some McDonald's even serve alcohol, which we don't think about, right? These McDonald's where alcohol, some cultures where alcohol is a little more acceptable, especially for young people. People can drink when they're under 18 in some cultures. You'll see actually alcohol at McDonald's, something we don't think about. So there's that culture diffusion, right? McDonald's goes there, but it does adapt a little bit to the culture there. If we go back to the 1400s, right, after Columbus first sort of told Europe that there was a whole other country, two other continents with lots of people on the other side, there began this huge cultural exchange that we call the Columbian Exchange. Ideas, goods, religion, we'll talk about in a second, but all sorts of things started diffusing between the two. So goods were, of course, the first thing traded, but as goods traded, ideas sort of came next. Probably the most early influential country in this is definitely the Spanish. the Spanish came to the Americas and brought a ton of their culture to the Americas. They first came to the Caribbean islands, then they came to what we've called modern day Mexico, which at that point was a very powerful empire known as the Aztec Empire. They went down and conquered the Incan Empire and eventually conquered all of the southwest of North America and good parts of South America. One of the things they did was they brought that forced assimilation. Just like we talked about with American Indians, they forced their religion, just like we forced American Indians to be white and Christian. They forced people who are already in the Americas to become Catholic, right? A branch of Christianity. Right? But what we're going to talk about today, though, is when they did this, things today are not 100% Catholic culture and Spanish culture in Mexico. Mexico is a very unique culture. It's a mix of cultures, several cultures, and one of the big mixes. The two big cultures it mixes is Spanish Catholicism and Mexican traditions and Mexican ancestral beliefs. So one of the most important days, at least in Catholicism, besides Christmas, Easter, is All Souls Day. Okay? All Souls Day is this day when it's November 1st and November 2nd, right? And you're really supposed to think about the people, your family members, people you love who have died. And you're supposed to go and do some traditional practices with them. Here are the 6 sort of big All Souls Day traditions that you do on November 2nd. So pause the video right now and go ahead and write these down. Okay, so these are the big traditions. Now, the thing about All Souls Day to remember, I'm not going to go over all this because you guys can read and write, but All Souls Day is a very quiet, solemn day. And, if you don't know what the word solemn means, it means a day when you sort of think to yourself. You're not, of course, it's not a big festive celebration. Okay? So this is a big day where you really think about and try to help the people who've died in your life. You're trying to help them to get to heaven. You're using your prayer to try to help them and your thoughts and your hopes to try to get them to heaven. Okay? Dia de los Muertos, on the other hand, also known as Day of the Dead in English, comes from an ancient, from older traditions in Mexico, okay? Specifically Aztec, but other cultures, other Native American cultures in Mexico. And basically those cultures looked at death and said, we shouldn't be scared of death. Death isn't a bad thing. Everyone does it. And it's disrespectful to mourn the dead. They don't want us to be sad for them. They would rather have us celebrate them. Okay? Death was a natural phase in life's journey. Okay? So what we're going to do today, what you're going to do, is for each of the following 6 Dia de los Muertos traditions, you're going to jump to your notes catcher and explain how the Mexican culture took something from All Souls Day and changed it to make it more like their ancestors. Okay? Let's do the first one together. So the first thing you see just a ton of, you saw it in the painting painted on that girl's face at the start of class today. You saw it in the previous slide. Calaveras. The skull and painted skulls and skull candy and skull masks and skull dolls are a huge part of Dia de los Muertos, okay? Calacas and calaveras. And the big reason they do this is to show, rather than be scared of death and feel bad about death, they kind of make this as a celebration of death, right? Death is something that you should laugh at because it's going to happen to everyone anyway. So you shouldn't let it ruin your life. In fact, you should enjoy it. You should celebrate it because it's a big part of life. Okay? So let's jump to our notes catcher really quick. Hope you guys appreciate how colorful your notes catcher is today. And here we are right now. So calaveras. So think about this. If we go back to All Souls Day, let's look at that real quick. Right? So if we look at All Souls Day, there's a lot of similarities between Dia de los Muertos and All Souls Day. Obviously, it has to do with family members. Obviously, it has to do with family members who have died. But rather than try to help the family members, the calaveras sort of take the family members and say, we're celebrating your death and we're embracing that you died because you lived a great life and we're going to die at some point too. And we want to celebrate you and not be sad about you. So calaveras takes the idea of All Souls Day, that we should think about people in our lives who have died, but rather than feel sad for them and just pray for them, the calaveras remind us that death is not sad and a part of life, and we should celebrate our people, family members who have died. Okay? So that's what you're going to do today. You're going to go through the rest of this video. I'm going to click through for you. Okay? Just click through and you're going to pause on each slide and you're going to go through them. And then you're just going to write like I did. You're going to take what about All Souls Day, right? Did they take and make kind of their own, right? So I'm not going to do much more talking. I'm just going to kind of go through the slides. You pause the video on each slide and read about it yourself. All right. So next thing up is papel picado. Pause the video. Think about this. Look at the All Souls notes you took. And then answer, how does papel picado, how does this tradition take something from All Souls Day and change it? Next up, pan de muerto, okay? Death, bread of death, basically, like bread, it's not bread of death, bread of the dead, okay? Bread made, obviously, to honor the dead. So go ahead, pause the video, think about how pan de muerto changes All Souls Day. Next up, the festivals, right? Look at the festivals. It's a very short description, but obviously it's very different than All Souls Day. Think about specifically what they took, though, of All Souls Day and changed. Marigolds, your next one. Pause the video. Costumes, big part of All Souls Day. Read about costumes and think about how that's a big change from All Souls Day and Dia de los Muertos. Sorry, costumes is huge in Day of the Dead on All Souls Day. Costumes is huge in Day of the Dead. Okay, how does Day of the Dead costumes change something from All Souls Day? Okay, and finally, exit ticket. In your own words, explain what cultural diffusion is and how Dia de los Muertos is an example of cultural diffusion. Use two examples and explain your answer. Basically, you're going to tell me what cultural diffusion is and give me two things, two traditions from Dia de los Muertos that were borrowed but then changed when they became Dia de los Muertos from All Souls Day. All right?